Let's jump into the exciting world of Norse stories, where big giants clash and gods are super powerful. We're going to look at the tale of Jormungand, a huge snake that goes all around the world. Get ready for cool stories about big fights and old predictions. Prepare to be wowed by the stories of the biggest snake ever. When you think about giant monsters in old tales and myths, who pops into your head first? Maybe it's the big Leviathan from Jewish stories, or the huge snake Apophis from Egyptian myths, or the frightening Typhon from Greek tales. Those are all pretty awesome. But what if I told you about a creature so big it goes all the way around the world, from its head to its tail? Yep, in Norse myths, there's such a creature, and its name is Jormungandr. Jormungandr is one of the most amazing beings in Norse myths, first talked about way back in the 9th century in a poem about Ragnarok. This poem mentions Jormungandr as the biggest thing Thor ever caught while fishing, and that's just one of the 3 times Thor meets this giant snake. Usually shown as a super big snake or sea serpent, Jormungandr is the child of Loki, the god known for being tricky, and a giant lady named Angrboda. It has some powerful siblings too, like Hel, who rules the dead, and Fenrir, a wolf linked with the end of the world. When Odin, the boss of the Norse gods, heard a prediction saying the serpent would be really important in Ragnarok, the event that ends the world, he got worried. Not wanting Jormungandr to cause chaos, Odin threw the serpent into the big ocean around Midgard, the human world, hoping it wouldn't make it. But things didn't go as Odin hoped. Instead of dying, Jormungandr grew and grew in the Midgard Sea, until it was so big it could go around the whole earth, biting its own tail. That's how it got the name the World Serpent. Wow, things don't always go as planned, especially for gods. When Odin tried to stop a disaster, he actually ended up making things even more complicated, showing how unpredictable fate can be. Who would have thought throwing a snake into the sea would turn it into a giant ring around the earth? That's definitely not what Odin wanted. Imagine Jormungandr, the massive Norse snake, feeling really mad at Odin for kicking it out. But in a weird twist, like something Loki would do, it's Thor, the thunder god, who ends up fighting the serpent. That's an unexpected twist. In our first story, Thor, with the tricky Loki and a brave friend, goes to the huge fortress of Utgard-Loki, looking for a place to stay. Instead of being welcomed, they're laughed at and have to face some really tough challenges. Utgard-Loki, a giant who loves tricks, makes fun of them and gives them tests that are super hard, even for gods. As Loki's tricks don't work and Thor's friends struggle, Thor steps up, hammer ready to take on each challenge. But wait, there's more to our story. Yes, friends, we're just starting our journey through the world of gods and mythical creatures. Let's dive deeper into the story of Thor and Jormungandr, following their rivalry in legends and myths. This tale is full of brave acts, clever plans, and so many surprises that even expert storytellers might be surprised. Let's dive into the exciting world of Thor and Jormungandr's rivalry, a big part of Norse mythology stories. It's all about gods, giants, and humans, and how they all connect. As Thor and Jormungandr fight, we see more of who they are, against a background of really big universe-level problems. We're going on an amazing trip through these stories, full of cool adventures, important lessons, and a story that keeps people interested for a long time. If you like myths and big tales, come along. We're going on an adventure to the far corners of space and back. But remember, in this world of gods and monsters, things can be tricky, and even the strongest heroes can get caught in fate's net. Ready for an awesome journey? Hold your hammers tight, and let's start. Thor boldly challenges a giant to a drinking game, thinking he can outdrink anyone. But he's shocked when he can't finish the giant's special horn, even after 3 tries. The giant laughs at each of Thor's failures, making him more determined. Utgard-Loki teases Thor for not being able to lift his cat. Thor tries hard but can only lift one paw of the huge cat. Utgard-Loki finds this funny and lets them stay in his castle, entertained by their efforts to prove their strength. The next morning they leave the giant's castle, but there's one last surprise. The giant tells Thor the truth. The drinking horn was connected to the ocean, and the cat was actually Jormungandr in disguise. The giant admires Thor's strength, but Thor gets really angry. Thor, acting quickly, tries to hit the giant with his hammer, Mjolnir, but the giant and his castle vanish, leaving Thor angry and embarrassed. With the giant gone, Thor's anger turns to Jormungandr, starting a big rivalry. In another famous Norse story, Thor fights Jormungandr at sea. He joins the giant Hymir on a fishing trip to catch the huge serpent. With Thor ready and Hymir worried, they head out to the stormy sea, knowing this is more than just fishing. It's a big moment for gods and giants. As they fish in the wild sea, there's excitement in the air, like before a big storm. When Jormungandr appears, covered in scales and twisting in the water, Thor knows it's a crucial moment. From the start, there's trouble. Hymir isn't helpful and won't give Thor what he needs. But Thor takes charge. using an ox head as bait. The ocean becomes their battlefield, with Thor determined to catch the snake that made him mad. Jormungandr bites the bait, and a huge fight begins. The sea gets wild, but Thor keeps focused, pulling in the snake. Just when Thor is about to win, Hymir, scared, cuts the line, letting the snake escape. Thor is frustrated and wants revenge. After the storm, Hymir is relieved, but doesn't realize Thor's growing anger. Thor can't forgive Hymir for stopping him, setting the stage for a big future battle between the god of thunder and the serpent, a fight that will be remembered for a long time. In the grand and mysterious world of Norse myth, the story of Jormungandr, the giant serpent, plays a big part in the dramatic story of Ragnarok, the legend about the end of the world. This snake is really important and has a spooky feeling around it. It affects both the gods and humans in a big way. Along with its powerful brothers, the huge wolf Fenrir and the tricky Loki, Jormungandr begins a dark and important journey. They're all heading for a huge battle with the Aesir, the gods who live in Asgard. It's a journey full of suspense and danger, and it feels like something big is about to happen. As they travel through desolate areas, it's as if the world itself is frightened of Jormungandr's arrival. The air becomes filled with the snake's poison, making the land around it dangerous and harmful. This evil presence is so strong that wherever Jormungandr goes, it causes chaos and marks the beginning of the end for the gods, starting a new era. In this epic tale of destruction and rebirth, Jormungandr is a symbol of the coming changes, with its actions altering the fate of many. The moment this enormous snake wakes up, it's a warning sign to everyone that the end is close, and the great fire of Ragnarok is about to begin. The much-anticipated battle between Jormungandr and Thor is incredibly intense and fierce. It's such a powerful fight that it seems to shake the very earth and sky. This battle is sad but important, as it represents the final showdown between the gods and the serpent. After all the chaos and destruction of Ragnarok, Thor stands victorious but at a great cost. He's been poisoned by Jormungandr, and although he fights bravely, he only manages to walk 9 steps before the poison overcomes him. These ancient tales really make you think about fate and how everything is connected, from the gods to humans. It leads to questions about whether Ragnarok could have been prevented if Odin had treated Jormungandr and its brothers differently, or was the world's end inevitable, bound to happen no matter what. Starting with the Gorgons from Greek mythology, these were some really scary creatures. Picture this: instead of hair, they had snakes that were alive and super poisonous. Anyone who looked at them would turn into stone, which is pretty wild, right? Now, the most famous Gorgon was Medusa. She's pretty well known because of the story where this hero, Perseus, defeats her. Medusa and her snake hair represent something more than just a monster. They're like the ultimate scary version of what people back then thought of as a dangerous woman. Moving on to a story from Roman mythology, there's this legend about a girl named Tarpeia. She was a young woman from Rome who made a really bad decision. She betrayed her own city because she was promised a bunch of riches. She let the Sabine army get inside the city gates. But guess what? Things didn't go as planned for her. As punishment for her betrayal, she was pushed off a cliff from the Capitoline Rock. That was a common way they used to execute people in ancient Rome. This story is pretty intense because it shows just how seriously they took betrayal and how harsh their justice system was. Next up, there's this epic story from Celtic mythology called the Cattle Raid of Cooley. It's a big deal in Celtic stories. It's all about this hero, Cuchulainn. He's defending this place called Ulster against an army from Connaught. Why? Because they're trying to steal this really special bull, Don Quailnge. This story is part of what's called the Ulster cycle, and it's famous for showing how brave and loyal the hero is. But it also talks about the sad stuff that happens because of pride and rivalry. It's a great example of how the Celts love to tell stories and keep their traditions alive through oral storytelling. Finally, back to Greek mythology, there's this monster called the Lernaean Hydra. It was this huge water snake, and it was a big challenge for Hercules, a famous hero. He had to fight it as one of his 12 labors. Here's the crazy part. Whenever he cut off one of its heads, 2 more would grow back. It was like fighting something that just couldn't be beaten. But Hercules eventually did beat it, which was a huge deal. The Hydra's story is all about facing challenges that seem impossible and somehow overcoming them. It's like a symbol of never giving up, no matter how tough things get. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more updates on legendary stories and characters.